G'day, everybody, and welcome back to Liberty Chat, your weekly roundup of Liberty news. With the Liberal Democrats, new host. You may recognise me, but different host. I am John Humphries, the National President for the Liberal Democrats. Kate is in the air at the moment as we speak, so she can't take the hot seat. I've taken the hot seat. Good morning, Gerard. Good to have you here. Good to have everyone coming in. This is streaming live to YouTube and Facebook and various different places in Facebook. So welcome to Topher's regular audience. I think Topher, it might be true that this is going to your page as well. So we're letting people stream in a little bit. This is live, so you may remember the first season of Liberty Chat, we would do it live for party members in the back room, and then we would fix up our errors before we sent it to Facebook and YouTube. No more chance for that now. So we are all under the bus. As we sit here, you get to see every error and screw up as we do it. But of course, that won't happen because we've got a very fine group of professionals. So if you're not supposed to laugh at that, you are supposed to endorse that wholeheartedly. So speaking of our motley crew of wonderful Lib Deb candidates we have in here today, we're going to have a slightly different format here. We're not bringing people on and off. We're just going to bring everybody in. We've got 4 great candidates, and we'll go around the circuit and talk about their news, both their news and the political news of the week, what's been happening. Yes, indeed, you are looking sharp, Topher. So I'll take you through the quick intros, and then we'll get everybody to run around and give you their news for the week and the political news for the week. So the 4 victims, volunteers who are joining me this week are our regular, JR, John Ruddock, of course, but I've gotten to the habit of calling him JR because our party has so many people called John, it gets ridiculous otherwise. So we've got our lead Senate candidate for New South Wales.
John, can I add there? My middle name is Raymond, so I am actually a true JR. My name is JR Ruddock, just like JR Ewing. I'll go back on
JRR. We've also got another Senate candidate, but not the one you're used to. Sorry, David Limbrick and Campbell Newman can't make it this week. But we do have another lead Senate candidate in the form of Topher Field. We did announce in previous weeks the very exciting news that Topher had joined the team, the Liberal Democrats' lead Senate candidate for Tasmania. Welcome, Topher. Welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you. And let's just say you've traded in a couple of fine Senate candidates, and think of me as a Senate candidate that you get when you order your Senate candidate from Wish. I'll do my best to stand in, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in Tassie shortly. People are wondering why I'm so dressed up. I am very much a black t-shirts guy. I'm actually heading straight from this to Sky. And John, I think we're getting a lot of... No, it's not you. Someone's microphone has just gone really, really gnarly. Daniel, your microphone has just gone really gnarly. Huge amount of interference there. Yeah, really? That's you. Yeah, as soon as you talk and the auto compression kicks in, it drops away. So anyway, Daniel, I'll leave that with you to try and figure out. But yes, I want to talk a little bit in a minute about what we're doing in Tassie.
All right, well, I'll just quickly finish the roundup. You've already thrown to him a bit, but the famous Luco of Vote Luco fame is one of our star House candidates in New South Wales, running against Dave Sharma in the seat of Wentworth. Make sure I didn't get that wrong. It is Wentworth.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, so, it's not only Dave Sharma, it's the big spender, Allegra Spender, who's one of the Teal Climate 200 candidates, and naively announced that she had over $400,000 in the kitty before she'd even announced her candidacy. So,
I was going to say that there are the whole stream of candidates there, but we all know that it's a straight up shot between Sharma and Luco and these other has-beens and also rans. They're struggling to get any of the media, isn't that right, Luca? Everyone's just too focused on you. It's I'll finish the roundup of intros, and then we can insult each other. And one of our star candidates for the lower house from Victoria, Maya Tessa from Jagga Jagga, Yaga Yaga.
Jagga Jagga, moves like Jagga Jagga. Don't worry about the copywriting. Hi guys, how are you? Thank you all for welcoming me. It's really, really exciting to be on this Liberty Chat with all of you. Amazing.
And if you haven't seen it, go check out Maya's Facebook. Includes some good videos. That the one you had with the holding up all the cards. I think that inspired other people. And I started seeing everyone do that. So there's some good thinking and good work going down in Jagga Jagga. All right, so that's the crowd we have here today. We are just going to go around and ask people, what's happened in their life and in politics this week. But we will start with a bit of consistency. What you're used to is going around the lead Senate candidates and asking them how their state's going. So, well, look, people have been excited to hear from Topher because we teased them 2 weeks in a row saying Topher's coming and then not putting you there. So given that people have been on the edge of their seats, just waiting for today to come so that they could see Liberal Democrats lead Senate candidate Topher Field, why don't I throw to you first, Topher, to let us know what has happened in your first week on the campaign trail.
Well, it's been a really interesting week, actually. I mean, we all knew an announcement had to come because ScoMo was running out of time. He had to call it, and it was almost certainly going to be the 21st. Surprise, surprise, that's what's happened. And so we're off to the races. But as you know all too well, John, and veterans like John Ruddock and others know all too well just how much freaking paperwork is involved. And so this week has actually been really bogged down. I've got a fantastic team. I've got a running mate for the Senate. So I have a second Senate running mate in Tasmania, and we have lower house candidates in all 5 of the lower house seats in Tasmania. We have a full book. And I think I can proudly say that Tasmania is the only state that has a full book, I believe.
Yes, I think you do have that gloating right. So some of the other states are getting closer, but I think you're the only one across the board.
Let's put aside the fact that Tasmania only has 5 lower house seats. Let's just ignore the details. I'm going to claim credit for the first full book for the Liberal Democrats in a federal election. Now, I have to say I'm really excited. The response from everyone has been really fantastic. We've got huge numbers of people volunteering, wanting to meet. We're going to hit the road on the 2nd of May. We're actually bringing a bus. There's going to be lots of flyers, lots of core flutes, maybe some billboards as well. We're working on that, and a bus. And we're going to do a road show traveling around Tasmania. It is going to be a heap of fun for 3 weeks. And for those of you that are members of the ACL, the Australian Christian Lobby, or are interested, I'm doing an event with them in Hobart on the 2nd of May and on the 4th of May in Launceston, where you can meet the candidates, myself included. So we're basically trying to book things up as quickly as we possibly can and get underway. We've got some really exciting collateral that we've developed that's unique to the Tasmanian campaign. I just teased the very first of 4 flyers on Facebook and Instagram earlier today. So if you want to see that, you need to go to the Topher Field Facebook or Instagram pages and have a look. So we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to have some fun. This is going to be a really good campaign.
All right, excellent, and welcome to the team, Topher. Swinging around to the old hand of Liberty Chat. JR, I think you've probably done more than any other person. Have you missed any, JR?
Well, this time last week, me and Luco were speaking on Zoom at the Australian Jewish Association. We had a terrific
you missed one.
Probably my first missed one. Okay, so look,
how was your week?
Well, look, firstly, my week's just got a little bit better because I heard Topher Field's report on Tasmania. Topher, that sounds fantastic. Sounds like you're putting in your heart and soul. I love the idea of the bus. I was out with you at Dubbo 5 weeks ago, and you just put out a random message, come if you want, I'm having a beer, come and have a beer if you want. A good couple of dozen people turned up, and they were terrific people, and they all love Topher Field. So let's hope it goes good. I've got one tiny little tip for you. I know you've done so much paperwork, and it's a pain in the neck. Congratulations for being the first lead Senate candidate in the history of the party who's had a full deck. I really believe you should think about having 4 Senate candidates. Okay, now I'll just tell you why, because when they get that ballot paper, the best advertising you are going to get is actually when people look at the ballot paper. But anyway, John Humphries is telling me to shut up. So what's happening in my week?
It's going back to the paperwork point. I think, we don't want to talk too much about ourselves, but it is insane this week. And they don't let you email it in. You have to fax it in. Get that? I mean, clown world. We're living in a world where you still fax in the nomination forms. We're hitting deadlines
they're
here.
subsidising the dying fax industry in this nation.
Okay, well, I guess the highlight of the past week, I had John Humphries stay on my in my office for 3 days over the weekend, and I can report to everybody he's exactly the same in person as you see on camera. He doesn't stop. He's always in top gear, and that's why we think he does a great job. So then we had the launch on Saturday. Thank you very much to everybody that came along, and the guest speakers. And look, I've always had for organising events like that, I've always taken the KISS approach: keep it simple, stupid. So I just believe having a small room with a lot of people in it is important. I think free entry. I think no RSVP, and I think make it quite, just get up a handful of good speakers, and then that's it. And everyone has a really good time. So I think there was still people going at the pub across the road till about midnight. So that was good. So I think that was all successful. But I want to highlight. I thought the highlight of the speech of the day was John Humphries' address, which goes for 7 minutes. And I would encourage people to go to my Twitter feed, and I've just put it as my top tweet, just so if you want to reference it, I'll leave it there for a while as my top tweet. He really puts out very convincingly, very soberly, very rationally, why the Liberal Democrats are the best party in this election to vote for. So I thought that was very good. Now then on Sunday, John and myself and Rob Cribbin and Dean McRae and a few others went up to Newcastle with Dr. Barry Reid. Barry put on an absolutely fantastic function. And, he's been a surgeon up there at Newcastle for 30 years. He's got TV ads hitting Newcastle TV tonight. Now, this is the second biggest city in New South Wales. Okay, so that's not insignificant. He's got radio ads starting very soon as well. And he's just one of the nicest human beings you've ever met in your life. And he really believes in our Freedom Manifesto, and he's giving it his all. So that was all very good. That's been the highlight.
All right, thank you. And JR, you're too kind. I'm sitting here trying to know where I'm supposed to look while you're being that nice. He's not that nice in person, don't worry. No, he is a scholar and a gentleman. All right, swinging around. Let's move out of New South Wales for a second. Sorry, Luco, to dump you last. But Maya, how are things down in Victoria?
Things in Victoria are exciting. So exciting. Is it me that's just caused all that static just quickly? No one else can hear it? Great. Okay. Things in Victoria are absolutely so exciting here. The momentum is huge. The appetite for freedom is absolutely huge. Everywhere I go, I'm being warmly greeted. There's been a few instances where, you get your extra heckles, but nothing that's completely abnormal. We're loving it. We're absolutely loving having an actual alternative and a sensible approach. And I'll follow on from John. Your speech, John, absolutely. Sorry, JR, John. Your speech, John, was so inspiring and really got to the point, and told us who we are. So it's been amazing. The Lib Dems are a family, and I know I can pick up the phone to anyone, even if I haven't met them personally, and they're my best friend automatically. So really well done. It's been great.
There's a lot of love going in this room. I've got to say about that launch, JR, I thought what epitomised how well it went is we had Victorians coming up and a good bit of interstate rivalry. And I love the fact that Topher's jumped straight in on the interstate rivalry and just beaten everybody else on percentages. But there's a bit of interstate rivalry between Victoria and New South Wales. The Victorians came up, so I didn't realise New South Wales could put on such a good event. So that's a bit of a snide, cheeky compliment from our Victorian cousins.
Okay, pleased to hear.
That's just because they weren't invited to mine either. John was more diplomatic.
Yes.
Indeed. Luco, speaking of yours, how has your week in politics been? Chasing any more pollies?
Well, it is Allegra everywhere. And if any of you have been, I'm quite proud of the meme I just posted at Vote Luco, where I drew a comparison between men who used to walk up and down Oxford Street in England wearing sandwich boards saying the end is nigh, versus in 2022 we have well-to-do people walking up and down New South Wales Road holding up signs convinced that billionaires can actually change the weather. This Climate 200 group is quite possibly the most dishonest political exercise in Australian history. I mean, say what you want about the major parties, the Liberal Party, the Labor Party, even the Greens. As bad as they are, at least you know why they're that bad and who's responsible for it. But if you're not a subscriber to The Australian, you're missing out on some phenomenal reportage today, because they've got an exclusive essentially saying that GetUp has been having conversations with Simon Holmes à Court, and as the Climate 200 independents will say, if Simon says they do, And so, it's quite clear what this is, and I think that's progressively being chipped away. The question is whether Australian voters are actually smart enough to see through all of this, or whether they're not. I'm finding that, these people, they stay on message. Every tweet is carefully prepared by, a team of 12 marketing and PR specialists before it's refined and workshopped, and then it goes out. I just tweet something, and hey, if I get it wrong, people are going to tell me about it. The big spender had a good one earlier today. There was a Liberal member that got quite a bit of strife for posting something on Twitter, daring to suggest that transgender people shouldn't be competing in sports of the biological opposite. So, for example, trans women shouldn't be competing against women in sport. And this is a pretty big deal at the moment. Personally, I don't understand for the life of me why something that ultimately only applies to a tiny percentage of the population is looking like it could become this major electoral issue. We've got so many other major catastrophes that this country is looking toward, and yet we seem to be talking about climate change and gender issues like it's 2019 all over again. So let's not talk about China. Let's not talk about all the businesses that got lost because of coronavirus. Let's not talk about all the people who are in real strife at the moment. The mental health, the fact that we had a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old and a fatality at the Easter show. There was a knife fight that broke out there. We've got a sickness in our society, but instead it's like, let's talk about the big thing that Twitter's talking about these days. It's really, really bad. But she decided to weigh in and try and lay the boot into the Liberals and say, will you condemn this? And I won't sort of repeat what she said, but it was really interesting because she ended up getting dunked on in the comments, where a whole lot of people who describe themselves as lesbians or gays or whatever came out and basically said, well, we agree with what that person said. So she made the classic blunder of assuming that every member of a minority group looks the same, walks the same, talks the same, thinks the same. And that's a big mistake. If you go through the LGBT alphabet, they're all different people. They're unique. They're entitled to have their own opinions. In America, they're working that out as well. There was this belief that all African Americans would always vote Democrat. Turns out people are entitled to have their own opinions. What we as a party have to do is we have to start attracting smarter people, and we have to get people who think about this. It's very hard because we're in a country where voting is compulsory, which means stupid people vote. So it's great for us to be able to, have intellectual discussions about all of this stuff. And, we know the truth, but it's very hard getting that message out there. And it's particularly hard getting that message out there for a couple of reasons. One, because the fake independents, they've got millions of dollars in the war chest. Now, why do they have that? Simple, because billionaires know that if their policies get over the line, well, they stand to make further billions. So if you were going to make $1 billion, would you throw $1 million at that? Yeah, you would. It's called a marketing expense for anybody who's in business. The other reason is, of course, because the media are very lazy, and they really put this down to a sort of two-horse race every election. It's always Liberal versus Labor. But curiously, in my seat of Wentworth, it's been styled as this two-horse race between Dave Sharma, who's the incumbent Liberal member, and Allegra Spender, who has no particular quality except the fact that she's an extremely well-funded independent. So they've decided that's the two-horse race. I've got to try and sort of get up there as a superior horse. And, that's going to happen. I mean, already, I expect at 1 o'clock this morning, her face is going to appear on every single Telegraph poll in the eastern suburbs. And so, we're going to have to contend with that. But people are looking for something different. And I think the Lib Dems really does offer something different and a viable third alternative. But I do think some of the reporting, like the shine's coming off these people. Over in Goldstein in Melbourne, Zoe Daniel got in a lot of strife. That's a seat that's got quite a Jewish demographic, and someone found out that she once signed a shocking petition against Israel, effectively endorsing boycotts and saying that Israel conducted apartheid. And it was completely dishonest. Anyway, that's come back to bite her in the backside. So she's now distancing herself from it. The Zoe Daniel website now has a specific page of policies for the Jewish community. No other minority gets that, but she did that. And her marketing people, who are the supposedly marketing royalty, the same ones that thought Allegra Spender driving a diesel-powered truck around town advertising climate policies was good advertising, they've gone ahead and done that. And she said, oh, yeah, well, I did sign the letter, but I didn't really read it, and it's not really how I feel. And can you imagine these people running the place? So hopefully we have to get that message out there. So it's been a fun week. It's been a fun week for me. I'm getting a lot of support. The thing I really like is that you know, I don't have people, and I don't think any of us have people throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at us as an investment in their share portfolio. You know, we're getting small donations. We're getting people offering help. Even in the comments here, you know, we're seeing people offering to letterbox things, and you know, that's passion. That's from the heart. That's things that matters. I got an email from someone saying, Daniel, I'm 60 years old. This is the first political donation I've ever made in my life. And I believe in what you're saying, and saw a clip of some things I'd said on YouTube, and there was $20 attached to it. And I got to tell you, if someone gave me $1 million tomorrow, I'd say thank you, but it probably wouldn't be as special as the $20 I got from that person, because they're real, true believers, and these are people who want to make a difference in this country. And just lastly, Pub Test, thanks for your comment earlier about my background. All I can do, however, is apologise for the foreground.
All right. Well, you've thrown us a lot of meat to get through there, Daniel. I'll throw quickly to the point that, as you guys would all know, and maybe some of the people listening at home, but for everyone else, the Liberal Democrats are, of course, the party that believes in voluntary voting. So there has been the quips before that you know, you could do the sales pitch and vote for us, and you might never have to vote again. But that's, you know, we still hope people choose to vote. But yeah, you are right that one of the downsides of compulsory voting is it decreases the average level of engagement of the voter. As if it's voluntary voting, the people who vote have a higher level of engagement. And I wouldn't necessarily call the people with low engagement stupid. To some degree, they might be smarter than us. Look at all the time and money and effort we're putting into politics. It's not sure how smart we are for doing that. But it is rationally ignorant. So it is ignorant, which makes their vote probably less informed. But it can be rationally ignorant to not spend all your time playing politics. So I wouldn't say they're stupid, but rationally ignorant. It still leads to worse outcomes, which is why voluntary voting is better for us. On the woke fights and the culture wars, you're right that it shouldn't be what people are focusing on. We've got real issues hitting real people in their daily lives, but it makes for good media copy, doesn't it? Because you've got two groups that really want to yell at each other, and you've got the media that really wants to point the camera at those two groups yelling at each other. And that's not to say that one side isn't right or one side isn't wrong, but I'm not surprised to see the media continue to fall down that rabbit hole. And the media seem to get bored with cost of living discussions. I mean, they're really important. People are coming home and looking at the price of their weekly shop, and they're looking at that price go up kind of starkly. I mean, we, as some listeners would know, my family was out of the country for a couple of months. We came back and just rebought the exact same last thing that we bought online with Coles, just sort of click the rebuy button. And the price difference was noticeable. It was, it's a bit worrying. So, yeah, I take that point. JR, I'll throw to you as one of the points Daniel made about the a bunch of millionaires gnashing their teeth about climate change. You made the case that you wonder whether some of these climate activists might be secretly funded by the Liberals because they piss off so many normal people. It probably makes people vote against them. What was it happen on your local bridge?
Well, you might remember 3 years ago when everybody thought Bill Shorten was going to win, and then the Greens played a significant role in damaging Shorten when they went on their little merry tour of Queensland, saying let's get rid of coal, driving through Adani country. And that was a massive own goal that the Greens did there, and it helped ScoMo. Now, you would think that these hardcore climate extremists would sort of, want there to be a change of government. And so why? And here we are on the eve of the election. We're now in the election. We wake up this morning, and a little thing called the Sydney Harbour Bridge has been blocked because hardcore climate hysteric maniacs have smashed their, have stopped their car and let off flares and stuff. Now, this was #1 story on all the commercial news in Sydney. A lot of people were talking about it. It was a major inconvenience. Now, the two federal seats which are going to be most inconvenienced by this are Warringah, where Zali is, and North Sydney, where Zali Mark II is, trying to knock off Trent Zimmerman. I live in that electorate, and there's like posters of this Kaylee Tink everywhere. Okay, she's got massive billboards everywhere, so they are really going all out for her because Zali's won it. So the Warringah contest is over. Now, the other electorate that's going to stuff up, of course, is Daniel's electorate of Wentworth, people going from the east to the north. Now, you would have to think, why would they go and do this? Okay, and it just shows, the left really are good at, shooting themselves in the foot.
Indeed. By the way, as you were talking, Daniel, I saw a comment come up. Keep the comments coming, people. There's some good ones there. We can't acknowledge them all, but we're reading them, as are others. But one came up that I thought was worthwhile commenting on. I don't know who said it, but kudos to you. They said they got a postal vote envelope sent to them. I think it was they said it was from Labor, but I think both major parties are doing it. But they suggested, I think they come with a stamped, an addressed envelope for you to be able to send it back. And they said you could use that envelope to send them some Lib Dems literature. Maybe the small copy of the Freedom Manifesto might help educate some of those major parties on what they could actually do.
I would not recommend wrapping that literature in a brick, because if you sent a brick back to a reply paid address, the recipient might be forced to pay for it, and that would be very bad. So don't do that.
Well, that would be outlandish. We wouldn't support that at all as we're going. By the way, there was one other big bit. I mean, the last week's been pretty big in political news, but it's also been there's been a big announcement in Lib Dems news. Of course, the JR launch, which we've covered, and it was a great event. But also, as many of you would have seen, the announcement last Friday, the Liberal Democrats now has a sitting senator. So the sitting senator for the Northern Territory, Dr. Sam Mcmahon, has now joined the Liberal Democrats, and she is standing as the lead Senate candidate for the Northern Territory for the Liberal Democrats, up in the top end. Look, I know us East Coast types, we don't always follow the beating pulse of Northern Territory politics as closely as we could. But I have had a bit of a crash course over the last couple of months. And there's something interesting happening in NT politics right now. The country Liberal Party seems to be imploding. People are breaking off for all manner of reasons. Like, not everyone's leaving for good reasons, perhaps. But there doesn't seem to be much left to the core of the country Liberal Party. So they lost their senator. They've lost a lot of people that backed that senator. They also recently lost, I think, a president a while ago. They lost a vice president recently, who's also now backing our campaign. They just lost some prominent members. And everyone I speak to says the country Liberal Party is falling apart. There needs to be an alternative. And just as they say that, here comes an alternative. So look out for some interesting activities going on in the Northern Territory. And welcome Dr. Sam Mcmahon to the Liberal Democrats. Another
100%.
Absolutely.
Sam is, for people who aren't following politics as closely as us, weird political hack types, Dr. Sam Mcmahon, a couple of things she's famous for is advocating for the legalization of nuclear power across the country. So that's something that's close to many of our hearts as well.
Yes.
And she was one of the few people that crossed the floor to vote against mandates. So as you can see there, just by those two sort of high-profile examples of what she's been doing, she's always been a bit of a Lib Dem at heart, live and let live type. So that's a big bit of Lib Dems news, and we will try to get Sam onto this show in the coming weeks. I don't want to make promises about which week, but
Can I cut in and take us in a slightly different direction? But I think something that's really worth pointing out is the incredible caliber of the people that are coming through the Lib Dems. And what we're seeing now is a really clear contrast. I mean, Albo and ScoMo, Captain Ukulele and the Makeover Man, these guys are literally the best that these major parties can put forward. This is the cream that rose to the top. And I'm actually sitting here with someone that I would love to actually embarrass a little bit. I don't think Maya knows I'm about to do this. But I've known Maya for a number of years, and I think it's worth you as a viewer and as a voter understanding the caliber of people that we do have in this party and the caliber of person that Maya is. I met Maya because she worked with some other people to start something called the Dandelion Wishes Gala. And I had the privilege of being a part of that after it was started, but Maya was actually there from the very beginning. And Maya, do you want to tell us how many millions of dollars did you raise for the Monash Children's Hospital?
Oh, it was close to $4 million. So it was, unbelievable. Unbelievable effort from a grassroots campaign. And
the thing is, for Maya, that this is not an aberration. This is actually her just default way of living. Can you tell us, I just find this extraordinary. Can you tell us a little bit about what you did with a couple of 100 kilograms of clothing once?
My background is Lebanese, and I go to Lebanon quite a bit to visit my grandparents. I believe in family, and I believe it takes a village to raise children, so I make sure that they know their entire family. When the Syrian refugee crisis happened, we booked our tickets, and we used 10 kilos of luggage each. God bless Emirates for their 45 kilo limit. And the rest of it, we got donations for men, women and children to go and give them clothes. And then I paid for an extra 150 kilos. So with 3 children, one only being, I think he was only 7 months at the time, I carried them all, 300 kilos worth of clothes, and went overseas. And, this is the thing, and this is what I don't understand about today's culture and today's politics. They're giving the young people, especially going back to the climate issue, they're giving them all these make-believe solutions. Let's do a change.org. Let's go do a protest. No, go out there and actually do something, do some research, and go stand up for your belief. Because there's nothing can happen without something tangible happening. So yeah, that was. I hate talking about myself.
That is a good point on the modern click culture. It does seem to act as somewhat as a substitute. People feel the need to be a good person. And if they click a button, they've satisfied that need to be a good person. So now they don't actually need to actually go out and do the things that would make them a genuinely good person. And Maya, by the way, don't you now agree with me how awkward it is when people compliment you too much on live TV? But Daniel, you were going to say.
John, let me tell the viewers a little bit about slacktivism. And, once upon a time, if you wanted to make a difference in the world, you did what Maya did. You would, or you'd go and work at a soup kitchen, or you'd raise money for charity, or you'd give money for charity, or you'd work for a charity. But now, no, we don't do that anymore. Now, as everyone knows, all the greatest scourges of modern humanity, from wars to famine, they're fixed with hashtags, people. That's how we make a difference in the world today. But something that people perhaps don't realise until they enter politics is the amount of unsolicited correspondence you get from every single activist group and rent seeker out there. Now, I think if everybody had to drive a motorbike for a week and drive a heavy vehicle for a week before they were allowed to have their driver's license, everyone would be a better driver. And I'm starting to think that if everybody had to be a politician just for 1 week, it would make us all much better voters. Because, just today, so every single day you get these emails, and the worst thing about them is they're not concerned emails from concerned people. They're mass-generated spam, where you can go to a website for your favourite cause, whatever that happens to be. Typically they tend to be, environmental or social progressive causes like that. And you enter your postcode and it says, send a message to your MP, and you go click, and the MP gets yet another email, which, just goes into the bin. But, every now and then you sort of get a new one, and you're not quite sure if it's spam, because you have to wait till you get the other 20 identical emails before you figure that out. Today I got one from friends of the ABC, asking me, will I commit to giving the ABC lots and lots and lots of money? And I basically wrote back and said, well, I have a check from the ABC from that time they defamed me, so can you please thank all the friends of the ABC for that? Because that's not the ABC's money, that's your money. And I made the point that, well, if the ABC's that good, surely people would be happy to pay for it. And quality brands don't need that. There's no friends of Cadbury. There's no friends of Ferrari. These are brands that people just sort of get on board with. But for some reason, a public service organisation needs to have a social group attached to it. But this is the problem. We live in an age of slacktivism where people sort of feel good about themselves, or, they get in the tweets and they make things. These people are just not making the world a better place. In fact, they're just making themselves really angry and miserable. And, the thing that worries me is that we now have a society that completely lacks empathy. There's a lot of research that suggests making people wear masks actually takes away a lot of their empathy. This is the reason firing squads typically blindfold a person or wear a mask, so that they can't actually look into the soul of that person whose life they're about to take. And where does it end? It ends with 16-year-old kids or 17-year-old kids, being murdered and stabbed to death at the Royal Easter Show. So this sort of slacktivism problem, and I really, really commend Maya for what she did, because, that actually made an actual difference in the world. And I think that's something that we all need to do more of. Look, it's the reason I'm going into politics, not because I need the job, or not because I particularly want to spend more time in Canberra, but because I want to make a difference in this world. And my motivation and the motivations of so many of the candidates that I've met are very similar. These are all quality individuals. They're business people. They're not career politicians who've been waiting for their turn. They're people who want to make this country better. And the supporters, and that includes all of you in the chat as well, or most of you. There's a couple of trolls there, but hello. But most of you want to make a difference as well. And it's a big deal. And that's what we need more of.
Daniel, I can't agree with you more, because the common thing that's said in Victoria that might give us the edge to win this state thing, this state competition, is that the one thing that all our candidates always end with is, this is bigger than us. We are not doing this for us. This is bigger than us. This is for Australia. You know, I run a 27-hour shift in 24 hours. That's what I do. That's my go-to saying. And we do this for Australia. We do this for our children. We're not doing this for any personal gain, because there is no personal gain when you're taking time and money away from your family. This is done because there is a greater good.
I do think we should make it a regular scheduled part of this show to come up with something something secret or embarrassing from people's lives and do your life in history. So Topher, maybe you could be in charge of throwing out history at us once a week. That was a very interesting part of Maya's history, which I didn't know about. And you're right, it does yet again show the caliber that we're attracting. You're about to.
Sorry, I've had a really good question here from Chaser Kitty. What happened to Topher's 2 videos on preferences for the House of Reps and the Senate? I've been plastering them all over Twitter, and now they're set to private. They're 2 of the best and well-explained videos I've seen. Well, I'm having a little bit of a conversation with the Australian Electoral Commission at the moment as to what constitutes electoral communications and what has to have a authorization statement on the end of it. And they have singled out those 2 videos that were released before in the case of the first one, before I'd even decided to run. I have not wanted to run. This man here begged me. And when he was on his knees and crying and sobbing, I just couldn't hold out any longer. And I finally said yes. So one of those videos was actually released before I'd even decided to run. And the other one was before I'd announced. And I've been instructed by the AEC that I have to take them down. And if I want to put them back up, then I have to re-edit them with the authorization statement on the end. Now, what of course the legislation doesn't take into account is that in the digital world, there are, thanks to people like you, Chaser Kitty, backlinks to the original videos. Thousands of them, tens of thousands of them already around the world and around Australia. And uploading a new version of the video, those backlinks are still going to be broken. It doesn't actually fix those links. So I lose all of the reach and all of the work that I've already done, even if I do what they've asked and I do re-upload them. So we're having a bit of a conversation at the moment about what the rules do and don't actually say, and what I do and don't actually have to do to comply. But this is such a good, and Chaser Kitty, you're absolutely spot on. The thing that's brilliant about this to me is this speaks directly to what the Liberal Democrats are actually about. Because some idiots in a far-off ivory tower made some rules that don't make sense and don't work in the real world. And now the poor bureaucrats at the AEC are caught between the real world and these idiot, rule makers, and they have to try and actually make it work in the real world. And this is what's happening across our society. Government is doing this to all of us every single day in 1,000 different ways. This is just one example. So yeah, this is exactly why I finally decided after 12 years of refusing that I'm going to run, because I'm sick of this shit. And this is an example of the sort of stuff that we have to put an end to.
Topher, can I
by the way, the comment about being on my knees begging may have contained traces of exaggeration and peanuts, but otherwise, yes, very well said. JR, you were going to...
Well, look, firstly, I mean, this is... those videos, Topher, were absolutely first class.
Yep.
They were public interest, presentations, which people in sort of year 10 should be played this in school by the Electoral Commission, so we all know how to vote. Now, why have they taken it down? Well, I'll put on my conspiracy theory. I think there was lefties in there that thought this bastard's changing votes to the minor party. That's what I think they thought. So I would urge you now, and look, from what I saw a week ago, just on Twitter, one of them was over 100,000. So
correct.
And I know you've got other platforms. So, mate, I would just urge you. I'd get these things back on ASAP. I know you're in some type of a very friendly discussion, I'm sure. Very cooperative, super cooperative. But
absolutely.
And you could capitalize on it. You could say, you could put a little warning at the front saying, this video was made, 2 months ago. I was told by the government, that I've got to tell you this, okay? Or you can make some fun out of it as a creative person like you can.
The other thing as well is with your conspiracy, I'm going to join you in on that as well, because the conversation around preferences has never been more prevalent than this election.
Yes.
And I'm so surprised at the interest that has come. And it's coming from the major parties. They're from their supporters who are instigating these questions.
And yet, have you noticed how, despite being forced to vote, people don't understand it, which is why, of course, Topher's video was such a red pill moment for people. But I mean, I get people come charging up to me in the streets, demanding to know where I'm directing my preferences, and I'm not directing them anywhere because I don't have any power to direct them anywhere. They're your preferences. It's between you and the pencil. It turns into a 15-minute conversation, and it's like the first time anyone's ever actually spoken to these people, many of whom have been voting for 45 years and are now sort of finally realising why they keep getting the same thing over and over again. But it's only one.
Well, of course, it's very much in the major parties' interests to have as their scare campaign, if you vote for a minor, if you vote for an independent, you will accidentally end up with X or Y, which is absurd if you understand how the system works. But it is a kind of a powerful, dishonest narrative for the major parties to use to spook their wavering supporters back into line. So, I mean, that's why it's always going to exist. But I mean, it's worthwhile. We've all commented on how important it is for people to know. We didn't come here prepared with balls of marbles, but it'd be worthwhile just re-explaining it for anyone that's sitting at home watching this. Preferences number all the boxes. You control where the preferences go by you numbering the boxes. No one else can number those boxes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And the way our system works, if you find Topher's video, he'll explain why. But it is entirely in your interest, and you get the maximum value for your vote if you vote your genuine order of preference. So put the party you genuinely like the most first, you genuinely like the most second most second, etc., etc. At some point in the green ballot for the lower house, you'll have to decide the order of Liberal and Labor. That's where you can decide which one of them you hate the least and which one you hate more, and you can shuffle that order. And your vote is never wasted, because if your first vote, the person you voted for first, doesn't win, your vote goes at full value to whoever you put second. It's like you get to vote twice. It's brilliant. That's another reason to vote for a minor party. And if the second person also gets knocked out, your vote goes at full value to whoever you voted for third. So there's no such thing as losing your vote. There's no such thing as other people controlling your vote. All we can do is make a suggestion. You do not have to follow our suggestions. You do not have to follow anyone's suggestions. It is your vote, your pen, and the privacy of the ballot box.
But if we were going to make a suggestion, it'd be put the lot of us at number one.
Oh, of course. That goes without saying.
And just by the way, talking about AEC and frustration and other parties like dobbing you in and so forth. I mean, I'm sort of nervous that I'm going to make a smart-ass comment to someone about vote early and vote often, and then I'm going to get a heavy letter from the AEC. And it also occurs to me that we because this is a live stream, so there won't be any post-production or anything. John, at the end of this, when you wrap up the show and you do a big dramatic sort of farewell to everyone, you're then going to have to pause, take a breath, and give an authorization message.
That is a good point. I was wondering that. Can I get one of the commentators to please write in a comment saying authorized by John Humphries, Liberal Democrats. And then we've got to put that up at the end. Yes, thank you, President. Sorry, Maya, you were going to say before that bastard Luca so rudely interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Luca pretty much covered it anyway, so we're fine. But I was going to say, for preferences as well, we've just got to remember, and this is what I've been telling anyone who's asked me, they are only election-centric focused. It doesn't mean that then we go vote with that party. It doesn't mean anything at all outside than helping us get elected. And we have to play that game because everyone else does. So it's not fair for us not to have that advantage. So when you are going to the vote, if you are an educated voter, vote your way. If you are not an educated voter and just want to go with the how to vote cards, take it on the chin and just do what we tell you to do and give us your votes. Outside of that, we promise you that we will continue to represent you the way that we said we're going to represent you. And there's no backdoor deals behind that.
Yeah. There was a question that just came in saying, are we going to have how to vote cards? Yes, we most certainly will. We don't have any available now for the very simple reason that there's no fixed information on who the candidates are yet. So nominations are still open. Nominations close for parties on Tuesday, for individuals on Thursday, and then all of the candidates will be announced and put in an order on Friday next week.
And we're going to need everybody who's watching this is going to have to volunteer to assist to hand them out, and it's actually a lot of fun. If you've never done it before, it's surprisingly fun. So I highly recommend it, almost as much as I recommend making donations.
That is true. So now you've got to So
John,
go to the website, ldp.org.au. There's a part that says, I think, join or help. You click the button there. There's a place to volunteer. There. And going out on the day, it is worth it. You go with a group of people, you make a day of it, have a few drinks at the end. So I do encourage you to get in on that. But just to finish the previous thought, just to say, we will have how to vote cards. We can't have them yet because we don't know the candidates. As soon as we know all the candidates, then we will have our how to vote cards, which again is a suggestion. You don't have to follow it. It's just a suggestion. We'll have that available online for whichever seats and whichever states you happen to be in. But yes, we can't have that up until we know who the candidates are for obvious reasons.
So John, are you saying that next Friday is all the nominations are closed? We then have the random ballot draw. Is that the following Friday?
The ballot draw. So all the nominations close for us on Tuesday, not just us, right? All parties and individuals on Thursday. Midday Thursday, you can't nominate. No one you can nominate. And then on Friday, you have the ballot draw. And this is a bit of inside baseball. Apologies, but I'll do it really quickly. This is something worth noting. It shouldn't be like this. It's embarrassing that I have to say this, but the nature of the current political system is that there is such a thing as a donkey vote. There is a benefit from having your name higher up or further left on the ballot. We didn't come up with a system. We think it should change, but it is the system we have. And that actually means next Friday is a hugely important day for all parties, and especially minor parties. So if you're religious, say a prayer. If you're not religious, cross a finger or whatever else you can cross. Because that day actually matters, unfortunately.
And the we can attend that. Is that right, John?
Yes. Yeah.
I
imagine you're going then.
Okay. Just quickly.
We're getting close. Sorry.
Yeah, no, very, very quickly. The ballot draw. So when you get particularly the Senate ticket, but also the lower house ticket, it decides who's in what column, which party gets the very first column, which party gets the last column. That's what the ballot draw is. It's random, like horses getting starting gates for a horse race. It's the same thing, completely random. But like John said, even though it shouldn't, it does make a big difference. Sorry, I just wanted to answer
anyway,
that.
Going off the inside baseball, and just so we've been coming to you here as biased political actors from a political party, telling you to, encouraging you to vote Liberal Democrats, and especially these four wonderful candidates right here. Just wrapping up because we're getting near the end. But I wanted to run around and just let's take that hat off and put on a hat as a political commentator. So that's quite easy for you, Topher. You've been doing that for quite a while. Political commentators, how would you guys rate how Morrison and Albanese have gone since this campaign has opened? Got any thoughts or comments on how this is rolling out, and any of the other key players, if you like? This is a question without notice, so I'm just speaking slowly for a second while everyone collects their thoughts.
How long have you got? How long have you got?
Topher has a spark in his eye. Go, Topher. What have you got? How well have they done? How many stars out of 10?
If this is the best they can do, how screwed are we? These are meant to be some of the best political operators. Forget their policies and whether their policies are good or not. They are supposed to be good at politics. Their policies are terrible, but they're supposed to know what they're doing, how to handle the media, how to handle random people on the street asking them questions. Now, I think this whole Albanese didn't know the numbers thing is complete rubbish. It's like telling an engineer that, what you don't know pi to the 10th decimal place. He doesn't need to know. It's written in places where he knows where to find it. Okay, if an engineer is designing a bridge, she can find out what the value of pi is if she needs it, right? It's the same with things like the unemployment rate, etc. So I think that's overblown. But the handling of it was so poor. Forget the fact that he didn't know the numbers. The way he handled that moment was just appalling. These people have the air about them of having no idea how they got to where they are. It's like they wake up every morning and they're like, oh shit, I have to do that again. Another day of being the prime minister, another day of being the leader of one of the biggest political parties. Okay. Oh yeah, I guess I'll just put my big boy pants on and muddle my way through. Like they don't feel like they are in charge of their own lives. And they certainly don't feel like they are worthy of the respect and the position of power that they have. That's my take on it so far.
Topher, may I suggest, though, that, I agree. I hate gotcha journalism, and I can't wait till some rookie journo marches up to me and demands I tell them the cost of a loaf of bread. And the answer is, I shop for the groceries personally every single week, including a loaf of bread, and I don't know and I don't care. Can we talk about something important? But... yeah. His handlers would have known that question was coming, just like every politician should know that at some point in the next few weeks, some smart ass is going to come up to them, just like someone did in the comments here, and say, what is a woman, right? So you need to see it coming, because if you can't see that freight train coming, then you're really not geared up to do it. And so you see these sort of rookie moves, and these are not rookie moves made by first-time candidates like we who don't have huge support staff. These are made by people who are part of a big machine. Imagine these clowns running the joint. Oh, wait, we don't need to. They already are.
I've got an added part to my challenge here on this wrap-up. A bonus prize, I don't know what the prize is, but bonus prize for whoever can think of anything positive to say about any of the establishment politicians. I know that's a question not on notice.
Elbows lost a lot of weight. I win. Elbows lost a lot of weight. I win.
Well done,
I
man.
want my prize, John. I want my prize.
Wait a second. Is that fat shaming I hear from you? That's outrageous.
Oh,
No. It's health. He's looking
Maya,
after his
how
health.
could you?
I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of him.
Maya, what are your thoughts on how the mainstream campaign has gone from all of the bad parties?
It's embarrassing, but at the same time, it's comical because I think that the media has really played to Labor and the leftists for so long. Watching this turn, it's a bit funny, to be honest. And I called it a long time ago. I said this was going to happen. I called the 21st. It was my gut instinct. For my reasoning, closer to when he was going to call it, it was more of thinking ScoMo's probably more vengeful, and Barnaby said 14th, so he was going to go 21st. So that was my gut feeling. But it's one of those things where, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. We're probably damned more if one wins over the other. But what do you do in this instance? You turn around and you go, we have learned from this, and we are going to put a minor party who has our best interests at heart first. And we are going to continue to empower them as a nation to make sure that they look after us. So that maybe not this election that we get power, maybe it's the following election we don't get power, but by the third election, fourth election to come, we are going to make serious change. We are going to scare the crap out of them. We already are. Because we speak truth, we speak honesty, and let's face it, we just want, as I said earlier, we want the greater good. We are all here for the greater good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And JR, you've been a long-time political commentator. You must have some witty insights for us.
Well, okay. Well, this is the 29th election since World War II. On only 7 of the previous elections has the opposition actually won. So more than 75% of the time, the government gets returned. Now, on those few occasions where the opposition does win, they have always won comfortably. They don't just win by a nose, they punch through. There's been a lot of close elections since World War II, and on every single occasion, the incumbent government has been returned. So when oppositions win, they win big. Now, the polls for Albanese going into this election, overwhelmingly, in my view, said that he was going to win. I was thinking 90% chance he's going to win, because if the government can be at 47, 48 going into the election, they're a very good chance of winning. Okay, but when it's bigger than that, when it's like 42, 43, 44, then it's like Australia's already made a decision they want to change the government. However, that's now Betfair a week ago had ScoMo at about $3.62 to win. Now he's about $2.44. That's coming a lot. Albo clearly has had a bad week. And I think actually it's into its third day now. People are still talking about it 3 days later. The ABC's talking about it. Channel 7's talking about it. Channel 9's talking about it. All these people that hate ScoMo. And what has happened here is, as Maya said, Albo's had such basically hasn't had any difficulties. They've always been nice to Albo. And during the pandemic, he was sort of not even on the picture, which was actually helpful for him. And now he's come along. It's all been positive. And I think his confidence is shot after these 3 bad days because he's not used to it. ScoMo, on the other hand, who's not a particularly intellectual person, I'm not going to complain about ScoMo. I won't shut up. I'm the pub bore on ScoMo. But putting that aside, ScoMo is bloody good at this campaigning stuff. He won it 3 years ago against Shorten, where Shorten every night would be on the news, surrounded by 10 suits saying something really serious. And ScoMo beat the Rockhampton RSL. G'day, mate. Get us a VB, Oh, g'day, mate. Let's talk about the footy. Crap. Now, ScoMo, he's never short of a word. it's usually crap. It's usually got no substance to it. It's the opposite of Tony Abbott, who was really smart, but who would always and ah all over the place. ScoMo, he's always, and he's looking good after these 3 days of Albo being in hell. He's looking good. So,
John, Scott Morrison has not only managed to, campaign well. You want some good news about politicians? He is the first Prime Minister of ours to serve a full term in the last 15 years.
Yes.
So he's fending off the knives coming at him from behind as well.
Yes.
Look, I got to say, I don't really have a strong opinion about whether the red socialists or the blue socialists are the better form of socialists to be running the country after this election. I got a few thoughts, but not very strong ones. But I will note, just as a political commentator, I don't know, JR, if you mentioned this when my audio went out, but the betting odds have closed. So the people who are putting their money where their mouth is, we haven't seen the polls since Albanese got foot and mouth disease, but the betting odds seem to be indicating an increased percentage chance of Morrison getting back in. He's still behind, but
it's coming
I always prefer to see where the money goes rather than the talk is cheap. Actually putting your money on the table, you have an vested interest in being right.
Yep.
I think with that, we're coming up to the hour mark. We want to try and keep this quite strictly under an hour. So let's just roll around if anyone has. Here we go. We've got the authorised. I actually have to say this. Authorised by John Humphries for the Liberal Democratic
You actually
Party.
have to say it at the very, very end. So you have to.
Oh, do I? I got to keep that on there.
All right. Anything else you want to say? I just thought that's what you were up to. So I jumped the gun a little bit. I'll take it down.
But there's nothing to say the rest of us can't do jazz hands when you say it.
That's beautiful. Please do. I was going to run around now, and I do mean short, Luco. So, but anyway, short final comments if anyone has anything for before the next week. Topher.
Get on board, guys. If you're watching this, if you're not a member, if you haven't volunteered to hand out how to vote cards, this is fun. And having done political commentary and activism, human rights activism for 12 years when it wasn't fun, for the last 2 years when I was risking getting my head kicked in by police and I'm still on criminal charges over that, that's the not fun bit. We've reached the fun bit. So guys, get involved because it's serious fun at this point in time. The momentum is with us. And like Maya said, we don't know how far we're going to get in this election. I think we're going to get a long way, but we're going to keep on pressing on and we're going to build momentum from one election to another. And you can be a part of it. So please jump on board.
Luca.
Candidates need volunteers. Get in touch, get on board. That's the biggest support you're going to. And I've got to tell you, it's a really fun group of people. I go to launches just because they're heaps of fun. So, get involved. That's the help that people really need. And, it's not enough just for you to be clicking like go offline. Tell your parents, tell your family, tell people to read the Freedom Manifesto. It's really simple and it's probably the first time most people who've voted their whole life have ever gone to a party website.
Although I will add, please do still like and share. So that's don't go. Instead, do both. Maya, final thoughts.
I just had something in my head, but it went. But I was going to say to you, don't be afraid to be proud of who you're standing for. Don't be afraid because your neighbour needs to hear it. If there's one thing that we've learned over the last 2 years, the government has been really, really good at dividing community, so we cannot have these conversations. So we don't know that we are all thinking the same. I can't tell you how many people I've bumped into and they've turned around to me and gone, oh my God, I thought I was the only one. Don't be afraid to stand up for what you want to see and what you want to represent, because they were not afraid to shut you down. They were not afraid to give you fear. They were not afraid to divide you from your family and friends and from your business and stop your earnings. So stand up, because we are just people. We are just people. I am a mum of 4. We run a business. But I'm standing up for you because I am brave and I believe that Australia is brave. So get out there, contact your local member, make sure that you have a corfu out the front of your house. First and foremost, signage is so important. And then let us know how you can help on polling day, because after you get your sausage, you are free, my friend. You need to come and help us.
I did say before the show started that when we get to the hour mark, even if Jesus Christ himself comes and joins us, if he's talking past the hour mark, I'll cut him off. But Maya talked past the hour mark and I was too scared to cut her off. So, but thank you for that. JR, final thoughts.
I only need 15 seconds. Look, I sincerely believe there are a couple of million Australians out there who have traditionally just blindly voted for the major parties. And I believe that they will be absolutely open to a minor party. And I think that as we get closer to election day, they're going to start to tune in more. They're going to start to pay attention. Now, I think our great asset is the Freedom Manifesto, particularly the Mini Freedom Manifesto. It's easy for people to just print out at their own computer and just drop it around. I think that that's not going to get us 51% of the vote. But you know what? I reckon it's going to really appeal to those thinking voters.
It's the Freedom Manifesto.
The Manifesto, thank you.
Indeed. All right. With that, I'm going to say thank you very much to all of our guests. I'm going to remind everyone at home, if you're watching this non-live, this is a live show. So please join us 7:30 every Wednesday. If you join us live, you can join in with the questions. We can go back and forth. We're happy to answer questions if they're not too trollish, and even some funny trollish ones. So please do join us 7:30 every Wednesday. And that's it for this episode. So I will close by saying this has been. I will close by saying this is authorised by John Humphries. I will close by saying this is authorised by John Humphries for the Liberal Democrats, Mount Waverley, Victoria. Thank you.